Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have a book haul for you. A few months ago, I recorded a vlog in which I talked about saving a book from a bin, and that was something that was written by David Lodge. I can't remember the title right now. The Picture Goers by David Lodge is a book I saved from a bin a few months ago, and I've done it again. But this time I haven't saved one book from the bin at work. I've saved several. I don't know how many. I have left them so that I can't really see what's there. Basically, a volunteer of mine is helping to clear out the house of a lady who has died, and there are quite a lot of books there dating back decades, meaning that some of them can't be used. Some of the vintage books we have saved and we are going to put it on in a vintage window at some point, but these are ones that were in the bin, and I decided that I would save and got permission, and so here we go. Firstly, I'll start with one that I can see, and that is A Study in Scarlet and the Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is in the Reader's Digest edition. I was going to do a video last week related to the anniversary of my grandfather's death, and well, it would have been 19 years, so whatever. It's not something we really need to talk about, but talking about the books that I had inherited. One of those books I have down there is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, which is a short story collection, and this is the matching edition of these two novels. I know that I read A Study in Scarlet a few years ago and didn't particularly care for it, but I've never read The Hound of the Baskervilles. There was a book a few years ago that I read by Anthony Horowitz, The House of Silk, that really reignited my adoration of the Sherlock Holmes stories, so I'm hoping to go back and read these one day. Next, I don't know what this book is. This is Elizabeth by David Starkey. A brilliant and compelling account of the apprentice years of Elizabeth I. I don't remember putting this in the bag. Now, it makes sense because I have bought a lot of Tudor non-fiction recently. David Starkey has written about the early years of Elizabeth I before she was accused of being a traitor by Mary I and was about to be executed. So, yeah, sounds fun. Then we have Best Ghost Stories by Charles Dickens. This is a Wordsworth classic, and what's it got in here? Do you think it's going to tell us? I know that I have previously owned this book. So we have The Queer Chair, A Madman's Manuscript, The Goblins Who Stole a Sexton, The Ghosts of the Mail, The Baron of Groswig, A Christmas Carol, The Haunted Man and the Ghost's Bargain, To Be Read at Dusk, The Ghost in the Bride's Chamber, The Haunted House, The Trial for Murder, and The Signal Man. Well, obviously I've read The Christmas Carol. Once again, it's my third edition of A Christmas Carol. If you didn't know, I used to collect that book in various editions, and then decided to just stick with the one that I got by Robert Ingpen, which I read every year. Now I have another edition of it, because I used to have the Best Ghost Stories, and then I have Christmas Stories. Then I had a small edition of A Christmas Carol that I would read, because I didn't mind that getting battered. Then I had that one up there. It's a story I collect a lot, and it's also the one that I watch the adaptations of all the time. I recently watched a Hallmark movie version of A Scrooge-type tale. It wasn't good. I did watch Scrooge with Alistair Sim on YouTube last week, so I will link that, because if you haven't seen it, you ought to. But yeah, this is a book that I thought that I would read over the next 2 months. An odd story here and there as we head towards Christmas. Will I read this version of A Christmas Carol? Probably not. Let's see if they're illustrated. Do we think they're illustrated? Let's see if they're illustrated. If it's illustrated, I might have a go at this. It's not illustrated. It's not illustrated. So I'm not going to read this version of A Christmas Carol, and that's good because that takes out 70 pages of this book. 70 pages that I no longer have to read, which means it's only 200 pages. Then we have Henry VIII, King and Court, Jonathan Cape Uncorrected Book Proof. So this was written by Alison Weir and released in June 2001. And this magnificent new book is her greatest achievement, a detailed biography of Henry VIII set against the cultural, social and political background of his court. Well, I actually got this because I have another Alison Weir book, The Six Wives of Henry VIII, here, that I've said I'll read and send to Emily of Noble Novels, and I still plan on doing that. So I thought that I could read this and send this to Emily as well. So yeah, Emily, if you're watching this video, would you like to read Henry VIII's King and Court after me? Because if so, I'll pop this into the post as well when I'm finished. Then we have a book that I had to go to Instagram because I felt like it was teasing me. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I read The Woman in White. I threw that book at a wall because I did not care for it. And I owned both The Moonstone and The Woman in White at one point before unhauling them, as I did a lot of Victorian literature because I was going through a binning phase. I didn't bin them, I took them to the shop and they sold. I've been informed by Ben of Doom Antidote that this is also the image that they use on the Penguin Classics version of Anna Karenina. And I thought, yes, I recognise those breasts. Not that I have any interest in those, as we have previously stated. David Lodge talked a lot about breasts in one of his stories, and I have no preoccupation with them. But still, this is The Moonstone. This is apparently cited as the first detective fiction in the history of literature, and I am going to be buddy reading this with Dane of Dane Reads in November. Now, why was the universe cursing me that day? Basically, when I started going through all of these bags, and it was a day-long job of me doing this, I found one copy of the Moonstone, and then this copy was there as well. It was like the universe was laughing at me for not enjoying Wilkie Collins. And so I thought, oh, you want to get into that game now, do you, love? Well, I've fought the universe before. I don't mind doing it again. So me and Dane are going to be reading that. And then I got The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I previously owned The Idiot by Elif Batuman, which was a riff on this, and I never read it, and now I wish I had. Once again, I really need to stop taking books to the charity shop when there's the chance that I might read them years down the line, as opposed to thinking that I want them. I just have limited space. I have limited space for books. Anyway, I'm just looking through this because I'm trying to find who... This is complete and unabridged, but I need to know who translated it. Okay, nowhere in this edition of The Idiot does it say who translated this edition, but it's the Wordsworth Classics edition, and if I find out upon researching this book, I will leave the name of the translator in the description. I read The Brothers Karamazov with Emily of Noble Novels a few months ago, so when I saw this, I thought that I would get it as well. It's about 600 pages, and this one sees a prince returning to Russia from an asylum in Switzerland, and yeah, apparently, it's a harsh indictment of the Russian ruling class of Dostoevsky's day. We'll see. I'm not going to be reading it this year. I'm not. I have plans, you see, and these plans have kept getting pushed back. I wanted to read Anna Karenina in May. It didn't happen. And I still want to read that book this year, but we're limited on time. I'm going to be reading Bleak House as well in November, as well as the Moonstone. My Christ, Victorian literature is going to haunt me for the next 3 months. I'm not sure if I'm okay with that. Should also say that I got The Crow Road by Ian Banks, and I wanted to read Ian Banks since I was at high school. The librarian got all of these editions in, and I took them out and I never read them. And yet this book has always had a first line that I think a lot of us know. It was the day my grandmother exploded. And it just sounds like it might be dark and humorous and appeal to my sensibilities. So there we go. Them's the books. Do you think I should read some of this non-fiction for Non-Fiction November? Let me know. Also, if there are any books that I should prioritise over others, let me know that as well. As you now know, I'm reading The Moonstone in November with Dane. I hope that you have enjoyed this video just a smidge, just a little bit. And until next time, that is... Oh,